It started with another argument, one of those pointless fights that had become far too common lately. It began over something trivial, me asking if she wanted to spend time together that evening. I thought I was being considerate, offering to set aside work and distractions to focus on us. But instead of appreciation, I got a sharp, dismissive response. Her tone was cold, almost rehearsed. "I don't owe you intimacy," she said, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like she was daring me to challenge her. At first, I thought I misheard her. I blinked, trying to process what had just come out of her mouth. "What?" I asked, half laughing, half nervous. "What does that even mean?" She didn't flinch. "It means exactly what it sounds like," she snapped. "I'm tired of you acting like it's some kind of obligation. Just because we're married doesn't mean I owe you anything." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. We'd been married for 8 years. 8 years of sacrifices, late nights, and working overtime to give us the life we had. And now she was telling me, point blank, that my feelings didn't matter. That the foundation of our marriage, trust, intimacy, partnership, was apparently optional. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her how much that hurt, how rejected I felt. But the words wouldn't come out. Instead, I just stood there, staring at her like a stranger had suddenly appeared in my wife's body. The fight didn't last much longer. She walked out of the room, leaving me standing there with my thoughts racing. I tried to brush it off, convince myself she was just stressed or having a bad day. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't the first time she'd made me feel like I didn't matter. It was just the first time she'd said it so clearly. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to figure out where things had gone wrong. Had I missed the signs? Had I done something to push her away? Or had I been fooling myself all along, thinking we were still a team? By morning, my frustration had turned into something else. Resolve. If she didn't owe me intimacy, then maybe I didn't owe her the endless sacrifices I'd been making to keep our marriage afloat. I wasn't going to let myself feel like a beggar in my own relationship anymore. Didn't say anything right away. Instead, I started paying attention, really paying attention, to how we interacted, how she treated me, how little she seemed to care about the effort I put into our life together. And the more I noticed, the more convinced I became that something had to change, but what that change would look like, I still wasn't sure. The days after that conversation felt different. Something had shifted inside me. I started seeing our marriage through a different lens. Not as a partnership, but as a balancing act where I was always the one giving more to keep things steady, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I remembered the long nights I spent working overtime so we could afford the down payment on our house. Back then, she told me how proud she was, how lucky she felt to have someone who cared so much about their future. I held on to those words like fuel, pushing myself harder because I believed I was doing it for us. But now, looking back, I couldn't help but feel like I'd been tricked, like my sacrifices had been quietly erased the moment they stopped being convenient for her. It wasn't just the money either. It was the small, everyday things, the times I canceled plans with friends because she said she needed me home, the weekends I spent fixing things around the house, the nights I stayed up late just to listen to her talk about work so she wouldn't feel alone. Intimacy, for me, wasn't just about sex. It was about feeling connected, valued, knowing my effort wasn't taken for granted. But apparently, that was too much to ask. So I started keeping track of the imbalance, not on paper, but in my head. I took note of every time she dismissed me or brushed off something I cared about. Like the night I came home excited about a new project and she barely looked up from her phone, or the time I made her favorite dinner and she just said, "Thanks," before walking away. I don't think she even noticed the way I was withdrawing. Maybe that was the worst part. How easy it was for her to overlook me when I stopped trying so hard. One night, I sat in my car outside the house, staring at the dark windows, wondering if it was even worth walking inside. It was my home, too. But I felt like a guest there, like someone whose presence barely registered. I thought about what she'd said, how she didn't owe me intimacy, and for the first time, I let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding. What did she owe me? Respect, appreciation, partnership? Or had I imagined all of that? That night, I didn't go inside right away. I sat there in the car, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, trying to recognize the man looking back at me. I didn't see the guy full of dreams and plans from 8 years ago. I saw someone tired, someone who had spent years pouring into a relationship that had stopped pouring anything back. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't angry because of what she said. I was angry because deep down, I knew she was right. She didn't owe me intimacy. But if that was true, then I didn't owe her the version of myself that had been bending over backward to keep us together. That night, as I stepped through the door, I felt different. Not angry, not sad, just done. Done trying to fix something she didn't even seem to notice was broken. The shift started small. I stopped asking how her day was, not out of spite, but because I realized I didn't care to hear the same rehearsed complaints anymore. For once, I wanted to see what would happen if I let the conversation die, instead of always being the one to keep it alive. At first, she didn't notice. She was so used to me filling the silence that my withdrawal just blended in. But after a few days, I saw it starting to sink in. She'd throw out little comments. "You've been quiet lately. Is everything okay?" But I just shrugged and brushed them off. I wasn't giving her an opening to twist it back on me. She started poking more, criticizing how I folded laundry, complaining I didn't refill the gas tank, even accusing me of being distracted during conversations we weren't actually having. But I didn't bite. I let her words roll off me. I wasn't playing that game anymore. And then, something strange happened. She started trying. At first, it was subtle, bringing me coffee when I was working late, suggesting we watch a movie together. But I didn't jump at those small gestures anymore. I let them hang there, unanswered, not to punish her, but because I needed to know if it was real. The tension grew thicker by the day. Until one night, she finally asked, "Are you mad at me?" Her voice was small, uncertain. I looked at her and said, "The one thing I'd been holding back since that fight. I'm just done trying harder than you." The words hit her like a slap. She opened her mouth to respond, but for once, nothing came out. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the upper hand, not because I'd won an argument, but because I'd finally stopped apologizing for wanting more than she was willing to give. The first few days after I left were quiet, almost too quiet. I kept waiting for the wave of guilt to hit me, for the urge to turn around and apologize just to make things normal again. But it never came. Instead, I felt something different. Peace. For the first time in years, I didn't have to walk on eggshells in my own home. Of course, she started calling. At first, just once or twice a day, then constantly. Missed calls, long messages, half apologies mixed with confusion. "I don't understand why you're doing this. I just need you to talk to me." But the truth was, she did understand. She just didn't want to face it. A week passed before I finally agreed to meet her. We sat across from each other in a small cafe, the same one we used to visit when things were still good. She looked tired, her eyes puffy like she hadn't slept in days. "You look different," she said quietly. "I feel different," I replied. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I've been thinking," she started, "about everything I said that night, about how I treated you." I didn't say anything. I just listened. For once, I wanted her to fill the silence instead of me. "I never meant to make you feel unwanted," she said, her voice breaking slightly. I felt trapped. I wanted space, but I didn't know how to ask for it without pushing you away." I nodded slowly. "You didn't just push me away," I said. "You made me feel like I didn't matter." She looked down, tears forming in her eyes. "I know. And I hate myself for that." For a moment, I almost reached across the table to comfort her, but I stopped myself. This was the same woman who told me I was asking for too much. The same woman who said she didn't owe me intimacy. Now she looked like someone who finally realized what those words had cost her. We talked for over an hour. She cried, apologized, and promised she would change. She said she'd already started going to therapy, that she was learning how to communicate, how to be a better partner. I wanted to believe her, just a part of me really did, but another part, the part that had been burned too many times, stayed quiet. When I left the cafe that day, I didn't make any promises. I told her I needed time, real time. She nodded, wiping her tears, and whispered, "I'll wait." Weeks turned into months. We spoke occasionally, mostly about logistics and finances, but sometimes about the past. She kept reaching out, trying to remind me of the good memories. Old photos, anniversary messages, even a playlist she made back when we first met. But something had changed in me. Every time I looked back, it didn't feel nostalgic anymore. It just felt distant, like remembering someone else's life. She sent me a message one night that I'll never forget. "I miss the man who never gave up on me," she wrote. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for not replying, because that man didn't exist anymore. Months later, I saw her again, by accident, at the grocery store. She smiled a little nervously and asked how I'd been. "I'm doing okay," I said. She nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "You look happier." "I am." There was a long pause before she finally said it. "I never thought you'd actually walk away." "I didn't think I would either," I told her. "But you taught me something." She tilted her head slightly. "What's that?" "That I can't make someone love me the way I deserve. They have to want to." She looked down, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "I'm sorry." "I know," I said softly, "but some things you only realize when it's too late." I walked away that day with no anger, no resentment, just clarity. She had her chance to fight for us, and maybe in another life, she would have. But in this one, I finally chose myself, and for the first time in years, that was enough.